idea of what questions are being asked or what trend. Why this is important is because if questions about being overweight is asked, hey guys, good morning. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I'll be talking about tips and tricks to pass the IELTS exam. So based on the last video that I made about the how to become a permanent resident in Canada, a few of you hit me up with tips or materials that I used to read for IELTS exam. So for today, I'll kind of be breaking it down. Whenever I'm preparing for IELTS, let's go back a little bit. I've taken IELTS exam 3 times, not because I didn't pass, but first time I took IELTS was like 2015. I was just graduating my BSc, and I knew already at that time that I was either going to go to UK or Canada or something, to further my education. So like before I left India to go back to Nigeria, I wrote IELTS to pass the exam. Because it's not like you're not a good English speaker. That's why you would not like pass IELTS and stuff. It's just IELTS has like its own marking scheme, and IELTS has like its own expectations from you, really. So even if you're an affluent, like advanced speaker, all the phonetics coming out, you know how to use your tenses and all of that, still doesn't mean that you'd ace IELTS. So the first time I went for like a coaching class, and yeah, it was an Indian instructor that did speak good English that trained me. Well, yeah, I just say like every time I wrote IELTS, my score got better. So there are like if it's still the same me, and my score keeps getting better every time I write IELTS, that shows that there are some tips and tricks, of course, that would help your IELTS. And also, I like to divide IELTS into 2. It's 4 bands, so it's speaking, writing, listening, and reading. But I kind of see speaking and writing to be like same, and then listening and reading to be kind of like same. I'll explain why I say this, because with speaking and writing, you can't really predict your score, like compared to listening and reading, because listening and reading is either you get it or you don't get it. So if you don't tick it, if you don't put A and you put B, that's wrong. There's no in between. Okay, just like reading as well. If you don't put A or B and you put C, like that's wrong. It just ends there. Like, did she get number 1 or did she not get number 2? Like, I think listening and reading are things that can be marked by the computer because it's just objectives. Speaking and writing now, like writing, you actually have to write, and speaking, you actually have to speak. And they kind of check same things with speaking and writing, so that they check your tenses, your punctuation, and all that, which is not the case in listening and reading. So I'll just start by saying for IELTS speaking tips, what I'll advise is get a tutor, at least someone who's taken the exam before. Like, that's the least that you can do. So the last time I took IELTS exam, I got a band of 8.5, which is like really high, like the highest you can get anyways. And when you're getting into Canada permanent residence pool, every band matters. So for like speaking, you're expected to get maybe 7.5, I'm not too sure. And you get 7. That would be 3 points less in your Canada Express entry pool. And then if you get not 7.5 now, you get 7 or you get 6.5, that's like another -3, another -3. And if you do the same thing right thing again, it's -3, so you just might lose like 15 points from IELTS if you don't practice well. So like it's very crucial to maximize your points from IELTS, ace it, at least get someone who has taken IELTS before. Might not be a class or whatever, but get someone who has taken IELTS before, and then you can join Telegram groups where people talk about it, or on some Instagram pages where people are talking about it as well. But yeah, let's get into it. So for me, the IELTS speaking tips that I've come up with is: number 1, get a tutor. Number 2, there are some YouTube channels. You're gonna see the names down here. I'm going to put their names down here. So there are some YouTube channels where they talk about IELTS speaking. We have IELTS Advantage, Fast Track IELTS, English Speaking Success, and then Learn English with Rebecca. Really, like, just go on YouTube and type IELTS speaking, and you'll see loads, because most of these channels have broken it down. They've been doing it over and over again past over the last few years. So like, they have so many things on their channel. Just search IELTS speaking on YouTube and you'd see loads. Okay, and also, if you're taking a tutor and then you're on the YouTube channels, you also need to practice with family and friends. This would help, because it's easy to just have it in your head and say, oh yeah, I'm a good speaker. Good speaker. You get to the exam hall and the questions just take you off balance. It's like going for an interview, even if you've been on that job for like 10, 15 years, and then you go for an interview and they're asking the same questions, and just because you didn't prepare particularly for that interview, you're nervous, or and you just can't get the words right. And with IELTS speaking, it's time based. So if you ask the question, usually it starts with a question like, oh hi, how are you, what's your name? Oh yeah, my name is, first impression matters. So you just want to hit the ball running from the first question. You want to get in speaking. There are loads of tips and tricks. I'll try as much to like still go in more details for my own tips and tricks to pass IELTS speaking. So like, we'll go through part 1, part 2, part 3, and all of that in coming videos. Okay. Also, you want to get past questions from IELTS examiners like British Council or IDP on their website. That would help to get like recent questions that have been asked. So like, there's usually a trend of how the question goes. You just found out that this year, because of, like, let's say COVID year, because of COVID in 2020, 2019, 2020, COVID-20 year, COVID-19 year, 2019, 2020. So because of COVID, you notice that most of the IELTS questions in that period were regarding COVID. So you might find out that this year it's regarding migration. You might find out that it's a particular year it's regarding global warming. So if you go on these websites, you would have an idea of what the trends are, what people are being asked about. Sometimes it might be about your weight, overweight, obesity. And also, I noticed that what is asked in IELTS speaking is kind of common in IELTS writing as well. So like, the examiner might ask you, can you tell us about a time when you were overweight? Have you ever had to deal with an overweight child, or how did you handle the situation? And you talk, speaking. If the same person can come out in writing, but they're like, okay, the government, or there's been an argument where obesity is not, a challenge, or some people see obesity as a challenge. Can you give us your opinion and tell us which of which you get? Like, I'm trying to say that most times the speaking questions and writing questions are in the same category. So if they're asking about COVID in speaking, they might be asking about COVID in writing as well. So if you go on this site, British Council and IDP website, the people who actually conduct the IELTS exam in Nigeria, in UK as well, it's British Council, you would get an idea of what questions are being asked or what trend. Why this is important is because if questions about being overweight is asked often, you'd have an idea on the vocabulary, like you begin to learn about the vocabulary about obesity. So yeah, if I'm asked about someone being overweight, I'm going to use words like obesity, diet, or exercise, go to the gym. So you begin to get conversant with those words. You begin to infuse those words in your daily speaking. Then you speak with your family and friends, like you use them, you make them be your examiner, you can even act as the examiner and start correcting people. And I noticed that when you correct people, you learn even faster than when you're a student. Okay, so let's go into IELTS writing tips. Number 1, get a tutor if it's in your budget, if it's what you can afford, if it's nearby. Because to be fair, when you're reading for an exam, get your ass off, get out of the house, get in your car, go to the center. You'd meet people with similar interests. You'd meet people who have other tips that can add to yours. You get someone who actually proofreads what you've written and corrects you, and then you get better. Okay. There are mobile apps that I would advice for IELTS writing. I don't particularly advise mobile apps for IELTS speaking because unless they're like teaching you the vocabulary and stuff, I don't really see any need why you need mobile apps for IELTS speaking. But for IELTS writing, because you're going to see an example of an essay all written out, like all if you expect it to write 250 words, all 250 words, all written out in sentences and paragraphs and stuff. So like you read and then it gives you an idea of how to write yours. So some mobile apps that I would advise for IELTS writing, we have the IELTS Prep app. So you just go on your app store or Google Store and type IELTS Prep app. There is an app actually called IELTS Prep app or IELTS Practice Band 9. Okay, once you just type in IELTS writing, you're going to see loads of options on your app store. You're going to see IELTS Prep writing, I don't know, whatever down there, IELTS writing tutor as well. So yeah. Also, get conversant with past questions, like we said in speaking. I already said speaking and writing are similar. So, like most things you'll be doing for speaking, you'll be doing for writing as well. So, get conversant with past questions, the topics that we recently debated on, like we said in IELTS speaking. Increase your vocabulary. So, if there's a particular topic or trend, if you're being asked about vehicles, you want to talk about automobiles, you want to talk about the engines, you want specific words that when the examiner is marking your IELTS writing, they're like, okay, I haven't seen that before, and this person actually used it correctly. Like they actually look in what you're writing. They're not just looking at this story. They're looking at like, okay, yeah, she's repeating words or she's not repeating words. So there's mark for high usage of vocabulary, and that helps your overall band score. Also, get better at your spellings. You don't want to be making spelling errors. For some people, it's going to be computer based. For some, you're going to write with your handwriting, with your pen, and you write like when you're writing with your pen. Try to make sure that it's very legible. Your eyes look like eyes and not L's. Your eyes are dotted. Your T's are crossed. It's only about 200 words and a few sentences. Just try to make sure that in between every sentence, you're like proofreading and seeing that T's are crossed. S look like an S. E looks like an E. It's legible. If you're typing, you don't have to worry too much about that, but try to make sure that you don't make any typo errors, especially if the computer has autocorrect. Make sure that whatever the computer is autocorrecting to is what you want it to have. Okay, or you can just turn that autocorrect off. Practice your punctuation marks. Like every writing, practice your punctuation marks. Make sure your commas are where they're supposed to be. Make sure you're ending your sentences, because there are different kinds of sentences: simple sentences, compound sentences, complex sentences. So sometimes when you're not putting your comma or your full stop to end that sentence, and it's supposed to be a simple sentence, it then becomes a complex. It looks like it's a compound sentence, or it just doesn't make any sense. So make sure your punctuation marks are where they're supposed to be. Apostrophe is where it's supposed to be. Apostrophe S is where it's supposed to be. When you're writing something like yours sincerely that doesn't have any apostrophe, do not put an apostrophe. Okay, where you're supposed to have a comma, make sure there's a comma. Where you're supposed to put a full stop, make sure there's a full stop. Okay. Use correct tenses. If you're speaking in past, make sure it's past. If you're speaking in present, make sure it's present. Make it make sense, really. Use correct sentences. Where you want to make it plural, make it plural. Where you want to make it singular, make it singular. Because sometimes you're like, oh, my mother is, that's a singular sentence, right? My mother follows, and is follows my mother. So don't go with my mother are, or my mother's is, you get. So like a plural should be plural, your singular should be singular. For IELTS listening, number one, get a tutor if you can afford it, if it's close by. Could be the same tutor tutoring you for everything, the same class that you go to if you can. For IELTS listening, you want to go either on YouTube, or when you register for your exam on IDP or British Council, they kind of send you a Dix. I don't know, that was in my case. So they send you a Dix where you can insert in a laptop that's got like Dix space, and you can listen. So they put like past listening questions where you can listen and write. With IELTS listening and reading, one thing I can guarantee is that the answer is there. The answer is there. Do not confuse yourself. I've heard questions. There's someone who got band 4 in IELTS listening, And for me, like I feel like IELTS listening is always the easiest. Like just listen, right? But it can be difficult because it's either you've not practiced enough and then you go into the exam just like, oh, it's easy, I know English. And then you're just hearing this because they're gonna speak in maybe British accent or some foreign accent. And when you hear British accents, you know that English is different from English. Anyways, you're just listening, isn't it? So listen properly, listen quickly, and when you're listening, you're looking at the paper. So you've seen question one, it's probably saying the address to somewhere, and then it's like puts just dash dash dash, like maybe they want the name of the street. So when you're listening, there's a conversation between two people. Oh, hi, I'm calling in to ask this and this and this and that. Yeah, I'll be staying at Stephen Street. You probably have a dash and then street. So you're just gonna write Stephen. Make sure you're moving quickly. If at any time you miss number one, you know that you didn't hear it. You have to know that you didn't hear it. They're already talking about number two. They're not going to go back. So in listening exam, it never plays back. It never goes back. So you have to go fast. It's better for you to miss one, because if you miss one and you're still deliberating on what was that, what's that, you're also going to miss number two. You're also going to miss number three, and that's an easy way to get a band 4 in IELTS listening. So practice. Also on YouTube channels, if you just type in IELTS listening, there are some channels that have put up past exams with answers at the end of the listening session here. So when you listen there, and then you can mark yourself. Always, I advise that you always go back to see why you missed it or what you listened to. So if the name of the street was Stephen Street and you wrote 7th Street, when you go back and listen, you'll be like, oh wow, it was actually Stephen. Why did I write 7? It begins to awaken your awareness that I need to do better, I need to listen better. The answer is actually there. It's possible to get 40 out of 40 in IELTS listening, so it makes you get better. Always keep a record of what your score was the first time you took the first IELTS listening and see how it progresses over time. Okay, make sure, like, give yourself a benchmark of what you should not get lower than. And advice, because IELTS listening, you should get 8.5 to get the full band score, the full score in the pool, in Canadian permanent resident pool. So you want to make sure that you get 8.5 in listening, and that means you're only missing 2 maximum. So you must get 38 out of 40 every time you practice IELTS listening. Okay. Yeah, I wouldn't advise any apps really for IELTS listening. I don't think it's necessary. Just get as many past listening questions as you can and listen, and put yourself in an exam mode. Write out your answers, mark, see your grade, go back and listen, see what you did wrong, and do more listening so that you can get better. So for IELTS reading, number 1, get a tutor. I can't overemphasize that. If you can, yeah. Then number 2 is download PDF samples from their websites. Okay, I'm gonna type it all out here. I'm gonna list it all out here. I'm gonna list it all out. So it's like if you go on Google and you type in IELTS writing PDF, I'll advise PDF so that you can print it out and have copies where you can read through, like during the exam. Though if it's computer based, the reading will be on the system. But yeah, if you can print it out and have it handy and go in, because reading, you're like digging out the answers are there. If you ever make an error and pick something else, go back, just like IELTS listening, go back and see why you chose this instead of that answer, and see what was your line of thoughts at that time. It will help you get better. So when you download PDF samples from sites like IELTS Daily Academy, IELTS Fever, Canon.co, ctfassets.net. Okay, I've said already, just search on Google IELTS reading PDF with answers. There are also YouTube tutors that talk a lot about IELTS reading. I've mentioned some. So just search on YouTube IELTS reading tips, and you see loads of other YouTubers talking about how to ace IELTS. Okay, always grade yourself. Don't forget, when you finish 40 questions, see what your mark is. So if it's 25 at your first try, You want to aim for 30 the next try. Go back and see why you missed those 15. See what you chose instead of what you were supposed to have chosen. And compare. Why did I say? Why did I pick B? Like B was nowhere close to the answer. You get, okay? Don't ever forget that the answer is right there. Like, of course, sometimes they try to confuse you, especially when you go like true, false, not given questions. They try to confuse you if it's actually there or not, but see, there is an answer there. There is an answer there, and it's never wrong. Like, go in there and find the answer. It is there. Don't forget to go back to your mixed questions, understand what you did wrong, and do it, properly right again. So yeah, like with IELTS speaking, IELTS writing, listening, and reading, they're like still branches out to exact way. So like true false not given has tips and tricks to pass true false not given. So there are still like more tips and tricks and more tips. So on YouTube you see loads of tutors who've been on it for years, and they've like dissected. So I'll try to see how much more detail I still can go. If there's any particular thing you want to know, hit me up, get on my Instagram and ask me a question, and I'll try to make a video on it to be more particular. Like maybe going forward, I'll try to like put up a question, a past question, and like try to dissect it with you guys or something. Yeah. Thank you for staying tuned. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this one. I'll put up the links that would help and names of the YouTube tutors typed in the video, okay? So that will help. Drop a comment. Let me know what next you'd like to see. I remain Nancy Nixon. Thank you.